We're continuing our discussion on voting rights barriers in California today. Joining us is Michelle Romero, who's the director of Claiming Our Democracy program for the Greenlining Institute. With 2.6 million voters and 46% of all Californians speaking a language other than English at home, how important is language access to voting?
Well, language access is hugely important. It's a big part of the Voting Rights Act, making sure that we have access to translated voting materials like a voter guide and a ballot, and also access to bilingual poll workers at the polls. But it's so important, really, that as our demographics diversify and we have more limited English proficient speaking people, that we need to look beyond what current law currently provides.
And what qualifications are required for individuals who are translators in polling places and for voting materials?
Do you want to talk about
that? Yeah, I can speak to that. So there are two sections, and I'll talk about in plain English, two sections of the Federal Voting Rights Act that address language access, Section 203 and 208. And as Michelle mentioned, they require that certain jurisdictions that have over 5% of their population speaking a language other than English provide access to ballot materials, bilingual poll workers, or the option of an assistant of their choice at the polls so that LEP or limited English proficient voters have access to the right to vote. In California, there are a number of counties that are covered under these provisions, but yet there are still problems at the polls. In 2012, 2 dozen Spanish-speaking voters in Los Angeles received Spanish-language robocalls and mailers instructing them to vote on the day after Election Day. So there are still issues with making sure that every voter, regardless of the language they speak, has access to an equal right to vote and knows when the election is taking place with correct ballot materials.
How are large groups being disenfranchised because they're not quite large enough with these formulas for the translation services?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I think of the Hmong community, for example, in Fresno. There's a substantial group there that speaks Hmong, but they're not a substantial enough group, according to the Voting Rights Act, to get coverage for the whole county. With the Shelby County decision, I think there's now this talk in the civil rights community of what can we do to restore the strength of the Voting Rights Act. And I think, for me and for Greenlining Institute, we're thinking, okay, well, even if we win every lawsuit, right, even if we restore every provision of the Voting Rights Act, we're still only talking about returning to the status quo. As we look beyond, as we look to the future, and we have a majority-minority nation, we really need to be thinking beyond what current law provides. So let me tell you about one other area, I would say, who's left out, right? The ballot initiative process. California has one. So do about 24 other states. This is how people are making laws and directly passing policies by putting initiatives on the ballot. And it's an English-only process. There is no language assistance for the initiative process. And so how do we make sure that we're applying some of the same standards we have for Election Day to all areas of our democracy?
And I think Michelle is right on in saying that our state initiative process is an essential part of our democracy. It's an essential part of how we have a say in our electoral process, just like the primaries. And if we cut out, 46% of our population, or 2.6 million potential voters, that's disenfranchisement.
Well, Michelle, what's the solution to this?
Well, we changed the law, right? So Greenlining Institute actually introduced a bill at the state level a couple of years back, SB 1233, that would have basically extended the Federal Voting Rights Act protections for language assistance to the initiative process. So if you're circulating a petition in a county that's covered for Spanish or Chinese, let's say, the title and summary of your initiative petition would also need to be translated into Spanish and Chinese.
Thank you very much, Michelle. For more information about the League of Women Voters of San Francisco and ways for you to get involved in our important work on voting rights, please visit our website at lwvsf.org or To find out more information about this important study on voting rights barriers in California, please go to lccr.com.